If you want to learn ethical hacking with detailed step-by-step lessons, quizzes to keep you on track and join an amazing community of like-minded hackers, check it out at wap.com/cyberflow. First link in the description. Try it now for absolutely free. More on this later. Thanks for listening. Alright, let's get into the nitty-gritty of reverse shells. We'll go step by step breaking down each part, so by the end you'll understand exactly how to get remote control of a computer. Again, ethically and legally, of course. Think of a shell as your direct communication line with a computer. When you open up a shell, you're essentially opening up a one-on-one conversation where you can tell the computer to do things. On Windows, that's the command prompt, while on Linux, you'll use the terminal. The shell takes in commands and executes them, which makes it the ideal tool if you want to control a computer remotely. But how? Here's the real genius. A reverse shell is just a clever twist on a typical shell. Normally, a firewall would block any incoming commands to a computer for security reasons, but a reverse shell is like a message in a bottle. Instead of trying to force a connection into the target computer, which the firewall blocks, we send the target a file or code snippet that, when opened, tells it to call back to us. So the firewall just thinks it's allowing an outgoing connection and doesn't block it. Once the target computer connects back to our IP and port, it creates a two-way street. Now we can send commands directly to it. Head to revshell.com, an online reverse shell generator that simplifies the coding. Set dark mode. Alright, this one's just for hacker aesthetics, but also easier on the eyes. You'll need your own IP address here, so that when the reverse shell opens, it knows exactly where to connect back. You can find your IP address by typing IPadder in your terminal, Linux, or ipconfig, Windows, and use a port that you know is open and won't be blocked by your firewall. For example, let's use 4444. You'll see several options for shell types, like MSF Venom, PowerShell, PHP, etc. These are different scripting languages, each with its own commands and syntax. For targeting Windows machines, PowerShell is perfect, because it's widely available on Windows systems. Once you've set the IP, port, and shell type, the site will spit out a ready-to-use payload. This payload is essentially a small script that, when run on the target machine, will tell it to reach back to your IP address on the specified port. Copy this and save it in a file named something like update.ps1 for a bit of subtlety. Now that you've created the payload, the next step is to set up your listener. A listener is like a phone line that waits for incoming calls, and here, we're waiting for the target computer to dial back. Open your terminal. On Linux, you'll use tools like Netcat, NC, or Metasploit's MSF console, which are powerful, customizable tools for listening. Let's say you're using Netcat. You'd run a command like nc-lvp4444. This command tells your machine to start listening on port 4444. Now, anytime something tries to connect to that port, you'll see it pop up in your terminal. When the target computer runs the payload you sent, it'll connect to your listener, and you'll get a prompt saying you have a live session. This is your remote connection to the target. Here's the trickiest part, getting the target computer to execute the payload. That could mean sharing the file in a way that looks legitimate, an email attachment, a link, etc., and enticing the user to click it. Let's assume they do click it. Once they open it, your listener should immediately recognize the connection. This is where the magic happens. Now that you're connected, you can begin to interact with the target computer just as if you were sitting in front of it. For example, in your terminal, try commands like dir, Windows, or ls, Linux, to list the files in the directory. You can navigate to different directories and even access files. Type system info on Windows to get information about the OS, hardware, and installed software. Once you've got the hang of reverse shells, there's a whole world of remote access techniques you can add to your toolkit. Here are two common ones. SQL injection. This method targets websites with databases. By sending malicious code through vulnerable input fields, like a search box, you can get the database to run commands for you, sometimes even loading files that create remote access. Remote file inclusion, RFI. This technique allows you to inject a malicious file into a website. For example, you might upload a file that contains code to create a reverse shell and get control of the server hosting the site. And finally, there's HackTools, a browser extension that brings a lot of these commands and payloads into one easy-to-access place. It includes pre-made commands for reverse shells, SQL injections, and more. You can copy and paste commands as needed, which saves time and makes experimenting a lot easier. Let's talk more about the course. And here's where it gets even better. You'll get quizzes along the way to keep you on track, and if you ever feel like you need help, you've got direct access to me through a private Discord community. You can literally ask me anything at any point, and I'm right there to support you. But it doesn't stop there. Every single month there's a new course covering a different, essential hacking skill, whether it's social engineering, website hacking, network security, reverse engineering. You'll be learning everything. And you know what? You can actually try it for free. That's right, you can dive into the course without spending a dime. No risk involved. Plus, there's an opportunity for you to earn money with our affiliate program. For every person you bring in, you'll get 20% of the sale. People are already jumping in, sharing their progress in the Discord, and honestly, it's been amazing watching them grow. So why wait? Get started now. There's literally nothing to lose, only skills to gain and a community ready to support you. Sign up now, first link in the description.